Hey there, everyone. It's been a while, I think. Oh, but anyway, I'm gonna be talking about comics today because I've been reading a lot of comics. That's basically all I've been doing. So, comics, yeah. I don't remember if I uploaded another comics video. I know I took some comics videos, like I shot some comics videos, but I don't think I uploaded any of them. I might have. I don't remember. Probably not though. But what I'm gonna just do is like talk about a few comics that I've been reading recently, that I read recently. I guess not that I've been reading. There's like no continuity to it. Um, so yeah, I mean, I might do this every once in a while, just because I've been reading so much stuff. Like I've been, I've got like a lot of years to catch up on, and my selection is not specific. Like I can't. I mean, there's not like a lot of comic book shops in Tokyo. You'd probably guess that, but like, yeah, there's like a single comic book shop really in Tokyo that's like worth a damn. And then there's like another used bookshop where I get random things. Like it's just random, right? It's a used bookshop. But like, so I've been picking up a lot of random stuff and then like trying to pick and choose here and there for some stuff that I might want to read that you guys suggested in the previous video or was asking for recommendations. So I'm just going to talk about some stuff that I've been reading. This is not everything because like if I go into everything, this video is going to be like 2 hours long, and I don't know that I want to take a 2 hour video. So anyway, we're just going to look at this sampling of things that I've been reading. It's really random. There's no rhyme or reason to it for the most part. Like some of the stuff I ordered and some of it it's just random stuff I found. But on the tip of random things that I found, this is the Ray. In a Blaze of Power. This was like it's like a 6-issue miniseries, and I remember when this came out. Fun fact, this was the comic that made me get really into DC Comics when I was originally collecting comics. Initially, I was really into Marvel, and I was like, I'm not so into DC. And then this came out, and I was like, DC is on. I'm gonna start collecting DC stuff when the Ray came out. So I got the Ray here, and this was just like for nostalgia's sake because it, you know, it's good, but it's not as good as I remember it being. I mean, I think I really enjoy it. I like the Ray, the character, but like, man, this book is kind of dated now. Like, there's a lot of like goofy slang and stuff that's like, it's very like early 90s, right? Let me check when this came out, like late 80s maybe? 91, so, oh yeah, 91. Originally it came out in 91, and this is like a reprint from 94. So like, obviously this is something I got at a used bookstore, but like, the story is good. I like the idea of it. I like the character. It's just like really dated now. What can you do? It's still a good book. If you can find this, I mean, I think I paid like $5 for this. It wasn't expensive or anything. So I assume it's not expensive, but who knows? Because like I'm buying these in used bookstores in Japan where like English books are like not really sought after. So everything is cheap. Everything I get used is really cheap. Everything I get new is really expensive because, I got to import it. But continuing on, another random book I got is Solomon Grundy, Born on a Monday. He is, so Solomon Grundy is like a kind of a classic character, right? I mean, if you've ever watched like the Challenge of the Super Friends, that like TV show, he was like one of the original like characters on like as in part of the Legion of Doom, but also like he's like kind of an old school character. If you like, I used to read Infinity Incorporated and I remember them fighting him and like, but I know he's much older than that even, like, but it's the kind of thing where like Solomon Grundy is basically like a unkillable zombie. Like he can die, but he just keeps coming back. And this story is kind of a prelude to Darkest Night, where the Black Lanterns show up. But like, this is a really good story. It's got like kind of an origin story for Solomon Grundy, and it has appearances by like the original Green Lantern Alan Scott, who doesn't exist anymore apparently. But you know, it's got some other stuff like Bizarro is in there. It's got like a weird kind of Solomon Grundy kind of story where you actually kind of feel for Solomon Grundy in this, even though like, you know, he's the bad guy. It's a pretty good story. I would recommend reading it. I guess like none of this stuff matters anymore in the sense that like DC has like rebooted their universe a million times, right? So like none of these stories happened, or maybe they happened. Who knows? Like, who knows? Every time there's a reboot, you never know what is like actually in the continuity and what is, you know, not. But speaking of that, like I got something. This is a more recent book. This is like actually pretty recent. This is Dark Knight's Metal. This is Dark Knight's Rising. It's like 7 or 8 issues of comics where it's like showing these like evil, dark universe Batman, and they're all really cool. On the cover here, you can see the Batman who laughs. He's like a Bruce Wayne who became a Joker via like being poisoned by the real Joker. It's a really cool story. I have all the other ones. I read all the other ones. I just didn't bring them over because it's like a lot of books. But I recently read Dark Knight's Metal, the whole series. I read like all the tie-ins, the main story, and this. But all, you know, there's like 7 evil Batmans. So like there's a Batman who laughs, who is the Joker Batman. And there's like the Red Death, which is like a Flash Batman, and the Drowned, which is kind of like an Aquaman Batman, and the Dawnbreaker, which is like a evil Green Lantern Batman, as opposed to a good Green Lantern Batman, which has been in other stories. And then like the Murder Machine, which is like a Batman who is like crossed with Cyborg, and the Merciless, who is kind of Batman with the helmet of Ares, so he's like the god of war, and then the Devastator, who is a doomsday virus infected Batman. All of these are really cool though. The stories are all really good. I really liked Dark Knight's Metal. It was really interesting. It had, you know, it's kind of crazy. There's a lot of cool stuff going on in it. Just really interesting. So I would recommend that if you haven't read it. If you're collecting modern stuff, like Dark Knight's Metal was a really good story. I mean, none of this stuff is like, I'm only collecting trades. So like I'm not getting modern stuff. So I'm going to be like months behind new stuff all the time. So if you guys like have any recommendations for new stuff, feel free to give them to me, because like 6 months later I'll be able to get it in trade. Speaking of new stuff that's in trade, this is the Terrifics. Out of Dark Knight's Metal, there's like in the kind of the side stories, and as like a major character that like shows up in the last part of it is Plastic Man, but like Mr. Terrific is here, and these two Phantom Girl and Metamorpho are just part of this. They like don't really show up in Dark Knight's Metal, but man, this was actually really good. I really enjoyed the Terrifics. It's kind of interesting story. The characters are thrown together in a situation they can't get out of, so they're a team. It's interesting. It's kind of goofy, but not. Like, the characters are goofy. I mean, anything with Plastic Man is going to be goofy, right? But, you know, at the same time, Plastic Man is kind of, like, crazy OP. Like, Plastic Man is, you know, really underrated for his power level because he's a goofball. But, like, you know, he's super powerful. And then Metamorpho is there, being Metamorpho. And they kind of, you know, Mr. Terrific is kind of like an Asperger's guy. Like, basically, he's like the third smartest guy in the DC universe. But he's like, doesn't know how to socially interact with people. It's kind of interesting. It's an interesting team mix. He's not really. I'm just kind of like giving a off the cuff explanation of him. But the team is pretty cool, and the stories are weird. What you'd expect. It's kind of weird but interesting. It's written by Jeff Lemire, who has done a lot of other good stuff too. So if that sounds interesting to you, you should check it out. It's a pretty good story actually. But continuing on, I got to the Challengers of the Unknown. This is Challenger of the Unknown is like a classic kind of DC series that like I was always into like the weird kind of classic DC characters. Like I always thought they were interesting, like the just weird human characters that did stuff. And basically Challenger of the Unknown is like DC's version of the Fantastic Four, except there's 5 and then and also they don't have any powers. But in this book, this is like essentially, imagine like a Dark Knight's, the Dark Knight Returns, how Batman is like years in the future, and it's kind of like this gritty reboot for them. And this is basically that. This is written by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, who did like a ton of Batman stories that are really well regarded, but like Challenger of the Unknown is basically, this is like essentially the Dark Knight Returns for the Challengers of the Unknown. It's like, you know, they're Challengers Mountain, which is like a big thing. It's actually in Dark Knight's Metal too, which is weird, but like unrelated to this is much older. You know, their team gets, you know, they're like living in Challenger Mountain doing Challenger things, but like they have all this merchandise, and the town like is a tourist attraction based on their, you know, their being Challengers. So like it's like the whole industry of the town revolves around the Challengers being there and like people coming to visit Challenger Mountain and whatever. And then like a villain blows up Challenger Mountain, and they have to like, you know, like 2 of the team members die sort of, and the other 3 are left to like pick up the pieces, but they're, you know, they disband the team. The town hates them. They have to go to trial for like destroying the town, and you know, like they go off on these weird paths. So like one becomes like a kind of like a Hollywood actor, and he, you know, becomes very rich, and another one like travels off to become like a vigilante superhero kind of guy, like a Batman kind of character. And another one like gets really into magic, so he's like trying to figure out all this stuff in the kind of DC magic world. And you know, like fate kind of brings them all back together. Not Dr. Fate, just regular Fate, or maybe Dr. Fate, I don't remember. Probably not Dr. Fate actually. But you know, it's an interesting story. It's like a really kind of weird, gritty take on the Challengers of the Unknown, which are kind of a, you know, admittedly kind of a goofy team. You know, it's like a 60s team, right? But it's a really good story. I enjoyed it. It's like an 8-issue miniseries that came out in, when did it come out? In like 90s maybe? Like where is it? 1991, that's when it came out. So I remember this coming out, and you know, it's good. I just wanted to read it again. Next I've got We 3. I believe somebody recommended this to me on the last video where I asked for recommendations. Whoever recommended it, good recommendation. It was good. I enjoyed this. Basically these 3 animals have been given like some kind of heightened intelligence, and they're also like, you know, crazy war machines. It's part of some like weird project, and they escape when they're going to be shut down, and the animals figure it out and they escape. And you know, it's interesting. It's a good story, pretty short but good. So whoever recommended me that, thanks. Next, another recommendation from you guys. This is Harrow Country. Harrow Country was not what I expected it was going to be. Like when I looked at this, like it's called Countless Haints, right? Like look at this cover. I thought it was going to be short stories, like short comics, that are were horror stories related to like ghosts in this one, because like all of the titles for the other books in the series are like something like this, it's like totally different, but actually it's just like a single story, like an ongoing series about like a kind of girl witch. It's Someone recommended this to me as a horror comic I should read, but like this wasn't for me. I read this and I thought like, it's not bad or anything. It's just like, after this book, like I feel like I don't care about this character. I don't care about this book. Like the what was there was all right. Like I don't regret buying it, but like I don't want to read more. It just wasn't what I was expecting. So sorry for whoever recommended it. It wasn't for me. The next was a DC House of Horror. I don't think anyone recommended this to me, but like I got it anyway because it's horror. It's like weird horror takes on a bunch of DC characters. So they're just kind of like short horror stories about DC characters, and there's like a Superman crashes on the planet when he's a kid and he's just like murdering people. Batman is like doing what is Batman's story? He's like a kind of a serial killer. Kind of. Batman is like the Joker basically. But there's like there's lots of things like that. There's like a zombie outbreak, and Shazam is like Billy Batson is in there being tempted by the word Shazam to become some kind of horrible killer or something. It's interesting. Like it wasn't great, but it wasn't bad either. Like I enjoyed it. If they put out another one of these House of Horrors, I know there's gonna be like a Valentine's Day one also, but like if they put out another House of Horror, I'll buy it. It's not bad. Next we've got something I really enjoyed. This is Seven Soldiers of Victory by Grant Morrison. This was really good. Not 100% good, but like it's like I have 4 books of it. It's like a series that was, this is the entire series. But it was like all of the characters, the 7 soldiers, have their own stories. So there are 7 characters who are the 7 soldiers of victory in this iteration, because there's like an older one that it's kind of racist, but whatever. It's like a 1950s DC comic, or maybe it's 40s. I don't remember. It's old, but kind of racist. So we don't want to talk about that one. But 7 Soldiers of Victory in this one though, we've got Frankenstein. Frankenstein, awesome character. The Bulleteer. This one was actually really interesting too. The Frankenstein story is like strange but interesting. The Bulleteer story, pretty good. The Guardian, this is like the Manhattan Guardian apparently, but like if you had to pick up just single issues of this, and I was just like, I have to only recommend to you one of these characters to read out of this entire thing. The whole story wouldn't make any sense, but like if I had to pick one, the Guardian is the one. It's good. The Guardian stories especially, I was like really into. It's got like appearances by a Newsboy Legion, which is another old DC thing that I'm, like a Silver Age DC thing. I'm totally into that. And then we've got like Clarion the Witch Boy over here. Shining Knight. Shining Knight is like, not this one specifically, but there was a Shining Knight in the original 7 Soldiers of Victory. And like Zatanna and Mr. Miracle. Not the New Gods Mr. Miracle, just the other Mr. Miracle. The Shiloh, whatever his name is. So out of all the 7, like the Mr. Miracle one is the weakest, I think. It's like not incredibly interesting. And the Guardian is the best. But altogether, you read them all, and it's kind of like a really interesting story because like they're a team, but not a team. Like they never team up. There's never a point where they're like, hey, we're a team, let's fight. They just do things, they do their separate stories. And in the end, all the stuff they did connects together to be like this final finish for what happens. It's really well put together. It's really interesting. It's yeah, just, this was really good. I really enjoyed 7 Soldiers of Victory. especially the Guardian. I really liked out of the 7 characters here. Each of them has 4 issues, right? And then there's like one 7 soldiers, or maybe 2 7 issues of 7 Soldiers of Victory. It's like just like the tied together issues. But like out of these characters, the ones I liked the best were the Guardian, Bulleteer, and Frankenstein. Clarion the Witch Boy was also pretty good. Zatanna's was kind of meh. Shining Knight also kind of and I just wasn't into the Mr. Miracle, but it was altogether it was really good though. So continuing on, I got Justice League Dark. This is the new 52 Justice League Dark. I love the DC Magic universe. Like I think all the Magic stuff in DC is great. So I got this. It's got Constantine. It's got Zatanna. It's got Deadman. You can see. It's got the Enchantress and Shade the Changing Man, who doesn't exist anymore, I guess. But I was like a big fan of Shade the Changing Man when it was a Vertigo title. I liked Hellblazer. I liked Deadman. I like Zatanna. I like all these characters. So I got this. It's a pretty good story. I know there's a new series of this, but I'll probably get all the new 52 ones before I even get into the new series. So it's going to be a while. Next. Wow. Okay. So this is Rebels. Rebels, maybe you guys know Rebels, but I was a huge fan of the series this is from. Not this specific series, though this is great. But Legion. This is Vril Dox. He's the leader of Legion. In the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, there was the team called Legion, spelled out like this, L period, E period, G period. You know the deal. I'm not going to spell it out. But there was Legion. And I used to collect that book. It was one of my favorite books. Lobo was on the team. So you got Lobo, you got Vril Dox, you got a bunch of weird aliens. And they're a team. It's great. I loved that series, but this is like a new series that came out in like 2009 maybe. That's like the continuation of the end of Legion. So Legion ended as Rebels in like 1994 maybe, 94 it was Rebels. And then they, for some reason, like 15 years later, they just brought back Rebels. I don't know. I mean, great. I'm glad they did, because I read this. And this is like a random thing, because like I just found this at the used bookstore. It was like $5. And I was like, oh, well, I loved Legion. Let's get this. And there was like 2 books there for it. And I was thinking like, man, I'll just get the first one, because who knows, maybe it's bad. Maybe they screwed up Legion. But I got this. It's great. Like, really liked this. This was like one of the top books that I read since I started reading comics again. I just really liked this series. I really liked Legion. I really liked Vril Dox. He's like, speaking of people who are like Asperger's, it's like Vril Dox is like seriously that. Like I was just joking with Mr. Terrific earlier, but Vril Dox basically, yeah. I mean, like he doesn't. he's got no idea about social cues. He's like just kind of a dick, but it's great. He's great at being a dick. So like you kind of like him even though he's like awful. He just does like this whole book is again like blows your expectations. It just sets up expectations and just blows them out of the water. It's really great. It's really interesting because like it keeps doing it to you. It does it to you a bunch of times through this. Like this is like the first 5 or 6 issues, right? It just sets up these situations where like, okay, it starts out like really action packed. Vril is running from bounty hunters who are after him. And he comes to Earth and Supergirl shows up and kind of saves him, and he gets a message from Brainiac 5 in the future like, hey, you're my descendant, so I want to keep you alive, but there's no record of you after this point, so I'm going to give you this list of people you can find to help you join your team and help you, like, survive. And he gives him this list, and Real Doc's, like, the first person on the list to help him is Supergirl, so like, Brainiac 5 is like, hey, Supergirl's here, great. And Real Doc's immediately, like, you know, electrocutes Supergirl and like disables her, and you know, one of the bounty hunters that's chasing him is controlled by this like mind device. So he basically steals the mind device and takes the bounty hunter instead of Supergirl. It's, you know, and that kind of thing, it's like always that kind of thing. So like he's got this list of people who he should be getting to help him, but like he's just like, well, you know, I'll take the people I like. I don't care about your list. I'm just gonna, you know, if there's people on there I like, I'll take them. If otherwise, who cares? I'm not working for you, Brainiac 5. I'm Brainiac 2. So it's great. It's just really interesting because he keeps doing it. Like he like gets captured by the Omega Men, and he's like trying to convince them to help, and they're like, and they're just like, you know what? You just told us your plan, what you're gonna do. So how about we just cut you out? We're just gonna go do your plan and screw you. And like it's the kind of thing where like, hey, that's kind of a good idea. And they do it. Later on in the book you see them like doing his plan and like doing the things he said he wanted to help with. And like they're just cutting him out. It's really interesting. It's like a really good story. I really enjoyed it. Here's a classic one that I just wanted to reread. This is Invasion. Now this happened in 1988. It's like when I was first getting into comics, I think. Like maybe a little earlier than that. I mean, not the story, but me getting into comics. Yeah, this was 1988. And I remember when Invasion came out. And I remember, like, I wasn't not, like I was saying earlier, like, Ray was the comic that got me really into DC Comics. But, like, it wasn't that I was not buying DC Comics. It's just, like, my main thing was Marvel. And just, like, every once in a while, I'd buy some DC Comics. But, like, when Invasion came out, I remember buying Invasion. I remember it being interesting to me was that the Dominators, which are these guys, they were saying, like, yeah, you know, because, like, all the Dominators basically are the same. They look the same, and all the other aliens kind of look the same. And they gave her, like, a really interesting explanation was that, like, you know, Earth is interesting in the sense, it's, like, unique in the sense that, like, the population, everybody looks different. Like, they're not, like, copies of themselves. And, like, unlike most of the aliens in the other series, like, all look the same. So, like, it's hard to tell them apart. But, you know, it was like an actual explanation for that. Like, oh yeah, most alien species, like, everybody looks the same. It's only Earth that's weird where, like, there's so many different variations where people look different. So I remember that from, like, 1988. And so when I saw this book, I was just like, yeah, I should read Invasion again because I remember that thing and I thought it was cool. So there must be other cool stuff in here. There is some cool stuff in here. This is actually, Invasion is like, speaking of Legion, it's like the first appearance of Vril Dox showing up. It's like the root of Legion. So that's the thing. Here's some other stuff I got. This is Bug, The Adventures of Forager. So Bug is like one of those weird Jack Kirby creations, like kind of related to the New Gods. This is like a part of the Young Animal line, which is sort of DC's adult thing, like a Vertigo line that's not Vertigo. DC is never afraid to start new lines, apparently, because like they're just like, yeah, we'll start a new line like every week and there'll be new titles and then we'll just cancel the line after like a year and start a new line that's totally different. But anyway, Bug. This was interesting. It was strange, but like all of these kinds of things are strange. Lots of weird stuff shows up in this, and like there's like kind of this weird time travel, dimension travel thing where he's going on a quest and he's trying to kind of work his way through what's happening. And, you know, it's interesting. I thought it was pretty good. This was recommended to me by a friend of mine, not from YouTube, but like, he was like, oh yeah, I really enjoyed that. So I thought like, oh, I'll pick it up. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. So, Bug. I mean, this book is the entire story. It's like a miniseries. So if you if you want to get into it, it's really easy because it's only this one book. But continuing on with the young animal stuff, I got a couple of things. This is Milk Wars. This was really weird but interesting too. Like, this was the first book out of the young animal stuff that I read because it's kind of like an introduction to what is going to offer. Everything is strange. It goes through each character. So like you've got all the main kind of young animal characters in there. You've got the Doom Patrol, which I love. I love the Doom Patrol. I've always liked the Doom Patrol. But, there's a bunch of other characters. Cave Carson is in here, another kind of weird, non-powered, kind of like the Challenge of the Unknown character. And then, like, Mother Night. Who else? Shade the Changing Girl. So, trying to figure out. Who else was it? That might be it, actually. I think that's all the main characters. But like, it was exciting to see this because like the Ray is in it also again, but also like there's like a company called Redcon who is like, changing the universe to be suited to the way they want it. So like you've got Superman has been turned into Super Milkman Man, or Milkman Man, maybe not Super, just Milkman Man, I think. And then Batman is like a preacher, and then Wonder Woman is like a housewife. It's weird. But like this is a crossover between like a bunch of DC stuff and the Young Animal stuff. So it's got like the Justice League and Doom Patrol and Cave Carson and Swamp Thing and Shade the Changing Girl and Wonder Woman, I think. And the other one is Batman Mother Night. So those are all, it's like a pretty good story. I'm not like a huge fan of the art. I think it's like a little cartoony for me. Like I know some people really like these. They did Bug also, I think, the same people. But like it's kind of cartoony in a way that it's not like, kind of not for me. But, the art is not the same in every issue, right? So like the Doom Patrol issue is actually fine. Like I kind of like the art for that. But like when you get the Cave Carson one, I'm not really into the art. But I like the story, and I like Cave Carson. So on that same thing, I actually picked up Cave Carson here. So I picked up all the Cave Carson has a Cybernetic Eye books. So like there's another continuation afterwards. Like Cave Carson has a Interstellar Eye, but I haven't picked those up. But again, like here, Cave Carson, it's good. I like Cave Carson. It's an interesting story. I like the character, like all the characters in this. I'm just not into the art. But that's not going to stop me. I'm just reading it for the story anyway, right? So, like, it's nice to have nice art. And it's not that the art isn't nice. It's nice. It's just not a style I like. It's actually, like, really colorful and interesting. I should show you some pages of it. It's like, it looks all right, except, like, like, look at these characters. Like, look at their like... Flash animation characters. They're not exact. Like, comparatively, like, look at this Superman. Like, it's not a bad drawing or anything, but like, it's really cartoony. It's just not like, I just don't enjoy it. Like, I enjoyed like what they're doing with it. Like, I think it's like artistically pretty cool, but like stylistically not that great. Let's see, the last we got, I had mentioned Infinity Inc. earlier, so I got these, like, found these two, and they were, like, $4 each or something, and I was just like, oh, well, okay, I liked Infinity Inc., I'll get these. So I got Infinity Inc. here, and, man, I really liked Infinity Inc., but these are terrible. These are really bad. I understand this is like the first 10 issues. This series got canceled after the 12th issue. So like I don't even get to find out what happens because it's like I have to get the final 2 issues, right? I'm not going to get them. I don't care. These characters sucked. It's not an interesting story. Like, this is not good. I was not into this. Really not into this. And I had to like struggle to get through it. Just like all the characters are unlikable. All of like... And, like, these are characters, like, they have, like, equivalents in the original Infinity Inc. Like there's like this guy was Nuklon, and then he like becomes this fucking asshole. It's like terrible. It's just like this was really bad. I'm not surprised it got canceled after 12 issues. Like I'm surprised it didn't get canceled sooner. Like it must have sold poorly. I can't imagine it sold well because it was bad. So yeah, that was kind of a waste, but I'm glad it wasn't a lot of money. Anyway, here's the last one. This is The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Now, there's a TV show of this now. I have not seen it. Maybe I'll watch it though. But I did read this and I thought, like, this is good. This was all right. Chilling Adventures of Sabrina was not bad at all. Like, I liked the art style. It's like kind of this painted, like, 50s style. Like, look at that. It looks good. It's not too cartoony like the Cave Carson stuff, but it's kind of like, an older looking style. So, and there's like also in the back, there's like this kind of old, like actual old comic of like one of the characters, Madam Satan. But it's kind of an updated version of that old style, and I really enjoy it. I think it's this one stylistically is good. Like, the story is all right. I like the kind of like alt universe Archie characters where they're witches. It's not bad. I liked this story. It's not like incredibly good, but like I'll get the next volume. It's good enough to buy the next one to figure out what happens, right? So maybe I should watch the TV show because the comic was actually pretty good. So that'll be it. I have read a lot more than that recently. Probably about 3 times this amount. Like I read the entire series of Preacher. I read like a bunch of stuff, older stuff, like a bunch of Batman stuff that's older. I read a bunch of like Superman stuff. Actually, I was catching up on a bunch of stuff. I read so much stuff, but this is a sampling of the kind of stuff that I was wanted to talk about. Really, it was just interesting. But I have like a ton of stuff more to read. Like I have a giant stack, and I also have, all the stuff I did read. So like, I don't know. I'll probably make. I should probably do these pretty often because I do read. I've been like reading a ton of stuff. So like I could probably do one of these a week and just make it a little shorter than 40 minutes. So yeah, I'll do that. I'll talk about the more stuff I read next week. Sorry, it's not gaming stuff. I haven't been playing many games recently. My interests have been elsewhere. I've like literally the only game I've been playing, and even not even that much, has been Red Dead Redemption 2. So that's about it. I have like nothing more to talk about. So yeah, I'll catch you guys next time, and I'll be back with more comic stuff. Eventually, when I get back into more gaming stuff, I'll do more gaming videos, I guess. But like, who knows when that'll be? When something like really draws me back to play something. Like I've got some things I'm interested in. Like I'll have Judge Eyes. I've got it pre-ordered. Maybe I'll be into playing that. I don't know. I've got Call of Cthulhu also, but I haven't even put it in. I haven't even opened it yet. There's like a bunch of stuff that I should play. I just like can't bring myself to like sit down and play games for a while. Like, I play like one mission of Red Dead Redemption after work, and then I'm just like, I gotta do something else. So, that's how it is. I'll get back to it later. But now, comics. So yeah. Again, any recommendations, feel free to give them to me. You've seen the stuff I like. This is a good representation of things that I like. So if you want to give me recommendations based on these, like, great. If you don't, well, okay. If you don't want to watch comic videos, okay, I understand. But that's how it is. I will catch you guys next time.